Facebook. Hello, Instagram. It's Tanya from Helping Hearts Homeschool. And this lesson was one that convicted me a lot. So this is something I found while I was doing my devotions probably a month ago now. You guys already know, anytime I find content that I want to turn around and teach, I write it down, and then when it's a convenient time for me to teach, I turn around and teach it. Hi, Natalie. Hi, P. Salazar. So this is one that I have personally seen, and I've personally been guilty of a lot of Christian families. Okay, I've personally seen a lot of Christian families do this, and then I've personally been guilty of doing some of these things as well. So a lot of times in the home, especially if you are in a biblical home, the parents become God. What that means is your child looks to you for all the answers. They fear you when it comes to doing something wrong. There's nothing above you. You are the end all be all in your home. And you think, okay, well, duh, that's a good thing. It's not a good thing because two reasons. One, if you ever fall into sin, you're giving your child a very skewed version of God. Because if you've been God to them their entire life, God's supposed to be perfect, right? Infallible. So you have taken that place of God. Now you fall into sin, so they automatically correlate the two. Now they might have knowledge that the one is not the same as the other, but emotionally and subconsciously, they're going to view God now through the lens of your sin. And I'm not even talking about big sin. Human words, right? Sin is sin to God. But I'm not talking about anything big. I'm just talking about dumb stuff. Like maybe you told a lie and your child found that out. Maybe you went somewhere or put something in your body that was not good according to what the Bible says. I'm talking about little stuff like that we've all done. Like I'm pointing at myself 500 times for that. So the second reason you want to make sure you don't become God in your house is because then it prevents your child from needing or wanting that relationship with God. So I'm going to share 3 ways to make sure that you are not God of your home. 3 ways to make sure that you're pointing your child or your children to God instead of always to yourself. So the one is make sure that you are very clear in the fact that you and God are separate. We should talk about God in our home like he's a person, because he is. We should talk about the fact that God is perfect. And God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, I realize they're all interchangeable. Your kids should know that. And you should talk about each one separately as well as the Trinity and all together. And paint that picture for them. And then you want to make sure that you're quick to apologize. You are quick when you say something out of anger to your child. Listen, maybe I'm the only one that's ever gotten angry and said something I regret later. I'm probably not. Drop me a 1 if you've ever said something to your child that 2 seconds later you're like, crap. That probably was not the best thing I could have done as a parent. Because I can tell you, I've been there more times than I care to admit. Right? Like as parents, we do that. So anytime that I do something that is not biblical when it comes to parenting or anything in general, but especially concerning my child, I make sure and I apologize to her and I remind her, I'm human just like you are. God is the only one that's perfect. That's why we look to him for the answers. That's why we look to him for the standards that we're supposed to be having in our life, not mom and dad. And this is where you get a lot of adult children, my age, adult children in their 30s, that are bitter against their parents. They're bitter against the church that they grew up in because mom or dad or both failed them. They preached all the high standards, never taught their kid to have a relationship with God, and then they fell into sin. And now the child's like, okay, hypocrite, which means God's a hypocrite. At the very least, the church is the hypocrite. Now, the flip side of that is maybe the pastor failed them. I can count 3 pastors that I personally know, that I personally sat under, that either got kicked out of the pulpit or went to prison for doing some dumb stuff. And I very easily could have had that skewed my version of God, right? But I'm very, very thankful that I did have a pastor growing up that was a very wise man, he's not a pastor anymore, but he's a very wise man. And I was able, well, I had to, but I count it as a privilege as well. My mom needed someone to take care of us at one point, or multiple points. And I lived with him on and off randomly. And he was also going through a tough time. His wife had died a few years prior. He had 3 teenagers. He wasn't in the position to be helping raise anybody else's kids as far as like financially or mentally or emotionally, I'm sure. But I saw, anytime he made a mistake, he owned up to it. And again, I'm talking small mistakes. I never saw him do anything that was not biblical, but anytime he said a harsh word or anything like that, he was the first to apologize, always told us, he's human just like everybody else is. That's why we're supposed to look to God and not to him. Thankfully, the 2 were separated from me at a young age. Maybe not by my parents, but I had a very wise mentor in that respect. To where when I got older and men failed me over and over and over again, that wasn't an issue because they weren't God. I wasn't going to church because of the certain pastor. I wasn't attending the service because of the music leader. I wasn't going to that class because of the Sunday school teacher. I was there because God, period. So 1, make sure you are keeping yourself and God separate when you are speaking to your child. Make sure that they understand they're not one and the same. You are not perfect. You are not the next thing close to Jesus. You are a sinner and a human just like your child is. Number 2 on that is make sure that you're showing them how to have a relationship with God. I hope every single one of you lives a long, healthy life where you get to not only teach your child as an adult, you get to talk to them before they get married, you get to talk to them before they graduate, you get to talk to them when they're having their first kid, you get to teach your grandkids about Jesus, but we're not guaranteed that. So first we talked about sin, but now I want to talk about what if God takes you out of your child's life and they only relied on you. You never taught them, you never pointed them to God. Now they're up a creek without a paddle, so to speak, because they don't have anybody to turn to. So create the relationship. Now that's worst case scenario. I get it. Like probably, hopefully that's not going to happen to any of us that are on here. But worst case scenario is what we prepare for. Best is what you hope for. Worst is what you prepare for. Now, best case scenario, you live a long, healthy life. But maybe your child in their teenage years and even their college years, and I don't know, I didn't start realizing that my mom was smarter than me until I had my first kid, not gonna lie. So if they don't respect you because of whatever reason, kids lose respect for adults, sometimes out of dumb things, they still have someone to turn to. And again, they have that relationship. Now, what I personally do, and I was gonna grab it, and I didn't. Let me see. Oh, I do. I have it right here. So I have my daughter. Obviously, she reads her Bible. She's 7. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. At 7, she's not getting a whole lot out of the Bible. Like, she's reading it, but then we're following it up with telling the story. We're following it up with relating it to real life. I have her do journaling every single day. This is a gratitude journal and devotional. You can find this on Amazon. If you want the link, you can text me and I'll link it to you, but you can find it on Amazon. It's just called Gratitude Journal and Devotional for Kids by Jessica Lewis. Amazing. She sent this out to me, I don't know, probably 2 years ago, and we've just been buying new ones ever since because it's that good. And it teaches my daughter to focus on the gratitude, to build a relationship with Jesus. It's different every day. It's not the same every day. So for this one, the verse talks about making a joyful noise unto the Lord with song and praise. And then it asks your kid, what does that mean? So it takes chunks of the Bible and it asks, how can you relate that to your life? What does that mean to you? Sometimes they're real life issues. Sometimes they are issues to do with God is sovereign and God is almighty and God is, omnipotent. And then you're learning new words right along with them. So it's a mix of both, but it's very good for relationship building. And then something I want to throw in there, if they don't see you doing it, why are they going to want to do it? And I'm guilty of this. I like to do my journaling and my devotions from 4:30 to 5:30 every morning before my kid's up. I concentrate better. I'm more relaxed. It's just all around, I get more out of it. Never, ever, ever reading my Bible in front of my kid does her a disservice. So as a parent, sometimes you gotta take one for the team. So once a week, I make it a point of doing my devotions when she's awake at the table. She does hers, I do mine, we do them together. Because I want, and I tell her, like, I do them every day, I just don't do them in front of you. So she knows I'm doing them. She knows I'm having that relationship with God. She knows that I'm going to him for the answers. She knows I'm relying on him. She knows that I'm practicing gratitude journaling and self-care journaling. And all around, I'm just making sure my mindset is right before she gets out of bed. So my hope, one, she'll do it for her own mental health through high school and college and when those big emotions are getting even bigger and crazier. But two, if she decides to have her own kids, which majority of women do, right? That she'll take that and carry that over and it'll help her be a calmer parent. So, one, keep yourself separate. Make sure your kids know you and God, not the same. Two, point them to God and help them develop that relationship. Because just knowing that he's a real person, if they never talk to him and they don't know what that looks like, they're probably not going to actually develop the relationship. And on the flip side of that, if you make it a chore where they hate doing it every day, I know one family that I'm not going to allude to when I knew them or anything because to each their own, but I'm going to tell you what their grown kids told me. Well, their kids were teenagers. So their parents got them up at 6:30 every morning, drug them down to the kitchen table, and had an hour-long devotion with them every single day. More often than not, that devotion was pointing out some sin in one of those kids' lives. There were 6 kids. And every one of them told me how they hated doing devotions, they hated reading their Bible, and the reason being is because they looked at it like a punishment. So very, very careful. I've heard stories of like a kid gets in trouble and they have to like copy verses out of the Bible. I don't want my daughter associating anything with God as a punishment when it comes to the relationship side of him. I understand discipline, all that stuff. God is not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, there's a reason we're being taught to fear him in the Bible. But the act of reading my Bible, the act of praying, like that should never be associated as a form of punishment. So just throwing that out there. And then number 3, when it comes to making sure that you are not the God in your home, that you're pointing your kids to the real God, is remember your own faults. This just kind of tacks on the first 2. We need to, 1, show ourselves grace. And most of us do. We may have guilt within, but we're the first ones to yell at our kids when they do something wrong. Yeah, we would never want our husband yelling at us for doing something wrong, right? We would never want our husband getting cross with us because we had a bad attitude, or we rolled our eyes, or we complained about having to go to a church service. Listen, some of y'all acting like you like going to church 3 times a week. There are times I'm like, I don't really want to go. I don't want to do the work today. What's up, kiddo?
I took the tablet and sanitized something in. It's still at 1% and it's at your screen.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, her tablet has not been charging. End of the world. Oh my gosh, Mom, my tablet's not working. I'm sorry, kid. I don't know what to tell you. But having said all of that, remember that you have faults and we need to show our kids the same grace that we show ourselves. We need to show our kids the same grace that we want our husbands to show us. And flip side, if you're watching this and you're the husband, you probably don't want your wife yelling at you every time you leave your underwear on the floor. Okay? I know I don't. So when my kid leaves her clothes in the bathroom every single time that she gets out of the bath, it does no good for me to sit in there and yell at her, Gloria, you're so dumb. What? By the way, never say you're so dumb. If you haven't watched my video a couple days ago on are you breathing life or death into your kid, go watch that. But I'm just being real with you. I've said it. Oh, you're so dumb. I can't believe you did this again. I've told you so many times. How many times do I have to tell you? Instead, we remember, what's that one thing that God has to tell us over and over and over again? We all have it. To be honest, I can't think of mine off the top of my head. As soon as I get off of here, I will. I probably have 10 of them. I know I have lots of things that I, over and over, are brought to my attention of, you need to stop doing that. And the next day, you need to stop doing that. And the next day, you need to stop doing that. And God's not sitting up in heaven yelling at me. So we need to have the same grace with our kids. And the reason I use the laundry on the floor is because we think of sin or just being patient with our kids' faults in general, that they always have to be some big sin, like you catch your kids smoking out back. Okay? Before you get to that point, there's lots of little, I won't even call them sins, because like leaving your stuff on the floor is not a sin, but mistakes. Lots of little annoyances that we all do. And some of them are sin. Like, for example, one thing that we dealt with my daughter for a while was sneaking around and stealing candy. Just is what it is. Again, I come on here, I have lots of good parenting advice because I read a lot of good parenting books. Doesn't matter how much good parenting advice you have, you're not going to be a perfect parent, you're not going to have perfect kids. So, here's me living in full transparency, telling you that I love to teach people about parenting and homeschooling and marriage and all the things. It does not ever mean that I have a perfect child, perfect parenting philosophy, perfect homeschool life, or a perfect marriage. All it means is I am sharing some information I found very helpful, and I'm turning around and wanting to bless somebody else with it. So, I'm rambling, so I'm done. I appreciate y'all hopping on here. If you like content like this, head over to helpingheartshomeschool.com. It's my blog. There's all things Bible devotionals and goodness, homeschool stuff, and I'm working on some network marketing coaching. There's just a lot of stuff over there. So if you're interested in parenting or how to make money online or any of that stuff, head on over, and I will see y'all in my next video.